The characters inspire the songs inspire the characters. I make up a playlist for each character as well. You can give somebody, you can create a character and you give them maybe a slightly different playlist to what you would expect them to have. And then it opens up a whole new kind of set of avenues for that character. It just increases the complexity of them.
Arthur Baker presents Looking for the Perfect Beat podcast.
Hi, this is Arthur Baker, and I'd like to welcome you to the Looking for the Perfect Beat podcast, where I get a chance to kick back, converse, and go deep with some of the most important people in my life that are featured in my new memoir, Looking for the Perfect Beat, which is out in May on Faber. It looks back at my career over the years in the music business and all the other things I got into. My guest this episode is Irvin Welsh. How the hell are you, Irvin?
I'm absolutely fabulous, mate. And yeah, I just wish I was in Miami with you right now because it's fucking freezing here.
Yeah, no, I'm looking out at the garden and I see the birds chirping and flying around, and I'm going to make a barbecue tonight.
You've got good eyesight if you can see chirps, mate. Like,
I can see them all. I got them all. The chirp. I'm seeing the chirps.
You can hear them flying, yeah?
Well, I see those notes, like in the cartoons when the birds chirp and you see the notes. Yeah. Yeah. So, first of all, can you describe what your perfect beat is? Because, we're all looking for a perfect beat, but looking for the perfect beat. And
it's funny because the title of your book it always brings to mind that Bronski Beat song when they hit that perfect beat, boys, beat buzz, hit that perfect beat, boys. But I mean, I think it's like the perfect beat to me that is the one that gets you up at that point in time. It's a movable feast, and it has to be, because that's the beauty and power of music, isn't it? If something comes along and just smashes you in that between the eyes, and you have to get up and dance. I'm still a prisoner to that right now. I mean, even though these legs, look at these legs, they ain't what they used to be. I'm still I'm still mad for it when I get. When I hear something, I just can't sit down. My feet start tapping, and something happens to these buttocks of mine. I just have to sort of force myself up and start to shuffle around a bit, and then it's like before I know it, I'm properly on one again. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the last time we were in a club together, you were DJing, and you killed it, man. You did the disco classics, and you had everyone up. It was a great set.
Yeah, I had to borrow your records as well, because it was all on vinyl. So I think I gave you a list of things to bring along.
Yeah, it was at Dante's, which is a vinyl bar in Miami, and you can only play vinyl records there, and it really taxes the skills. But you did really well. You're invited back anytime, they said. So.
Brilliant.
But here's the thing. So
for me to get invited back anywhere,
yeah,
unless it's to apologize, basically. Yeah.
The thing is no, you're right. There's no perfect beat, but is there a favorite beat? Is it like a rock beat? Is it disco? I mean, right now, today,
it's a disco beat for me. Because. Right. The thing about a beat is it's got to make you go onto your feet, and if you think about with some of the great disco music, and to me it's like Nile Rodgers and Chic is always the thing that stands out, because you've got you've got Bernard Edwards as bass line. It's just kind of you just feel that the subversion of that bass line, and then the choppy guitar comes along on top of that. And the other thing is as well that with most Chic songs, they actually burst into the chorus before the verse. So
right.
you're starting to sing along with it. You start to
before you know it. If
that like Good Times comes on, that's you, man. You're in, and you've not got any. There's no time to kind of fanny about and say and chin stroke and say, "Oh, do I like this?" Or will I get up and dance and be all self-conscious and think, "Oh no, there's too many good-looking women. I'm going to make a fool of myself in front of them on this dance floor." Or there's too many beer monsters and all that. Or there's too much this and too much that. You're just up, man. You just you go big or you go home, and you're right on that floor, basically.
No, Niall's a genius, and Daryl Hall & Oates, they do the same. They come in right on the chorus, and and that's the way to do it. And I was going to say, one of the other questions we ask, get out of the way in the beginning of this podcast is, how did we meet? Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I had that. Me and Nizzy had put this terrible band together to promote our disco sets that we were DJing all over the place, myself and Chris Needs. And we got together with Sarah Jane, who's a great singer, and with Henry, who's Dave the drummer and the Liberator crew and all that. So
Right,
it's quite
right.
a mixed bunch. And our intention was to do disco music, but I mean, as you've said yourself, house is disco on a budget, and we didn't have much of a budget, so it ended up we ended up gravitating basically towards house. And this was like kind of back in the 90s, and Chris had said, yeah, Arthur Baker's in town. I'm going to ask him if he can come along and produce this single for us, And we had Innes from Primal Scream, and going back to Nile Rodgers, Innes played a Nile Rodgers kind of guitar riff on it. He played that kind of choppy sort of guitar riff. He played it very well. It was probably maybe about the best thing about the track, really. It was too disparate a bunch of characters to really gel musically. And
What was the name of
you had
what was
the terrible job of keeping everybody in order. You were like the kind of the strict headmaster then.
Well,
because
maybe in the
around
90s and the 80s, I definitely
well,
wasn't.
you had got all your mad cocaine years out the way, and I was still enjoying mine. I was having my cocaine year out, and we had there was the Six Bells. It was in the Punishment Farm in Brick Lane, the studios in the old Truman's Brewery. Before it was all tarted up, and before it had all that mad security in it, you could just walk in. Had a bar there, and there's all these kind of weird marginal people hanging out this place. And there was a strippers pub next door, the Six Bells. So
Right, I remember the
Neezy
Six
and I were
Bells.
in there all the time, basically, kind of hanging out with the strippers.
Well,
and
you should have got the girls into,
I think did we
do some
not? I think we did one time. I don't think you would have stood for that, basically, because you're
No, I would have
you're a bit
stood
of
for it.
a
for
studio
sure.
tyrant, you're the governor in the
Was
studio.
I? God, I don't
Yeah.
remember being a
So,
tyrant. But what
so we
happened
were
to the
a bit-
record,
we were
though?
a
What
bit-
happened?
we were a-
What happened to the record?
The record was all right. It came out on my mate Fat Bob's kind of independent Bubbles recordings.
Oh, Fat Bob. Fat Bob
Yeah.
was the guy who hung around with Primal Scream and pretty mad guy.
He was an old West Ham ICF guy, and Bob had decided to set up a label and all that. So we were the first. I would say the first act to sign, but that's
Were you the first and the last?
Yeah.
First and the last?
I think the very first and the very last. But I always remember, I took this as a compliment at the time. I still kind of do, really, because you said to me, "You're the biggest asshole you've ever worked with," and
God,
I was thinking about all these.
That's saying a lot, man. Because
It is.
there's
in a own way, I was very proud of that.
yeah, you should be, because I worked with Mick Jagger with Mick Jagger and Lou Reed. If I felt that way, it would definitely. And Chris Needs, who we talk about, is a journalist and a friend of ours for forever, and he used to run the Mott the Hoople fan club. He's a very interesting.
He
dude.
ran the Mott the Hoople fan club, and Nizzy was like, he showed me his biography and all that, and it was kind of, you can't really put about your shenanigans with Benazir Bhutto, because she's a sort of she's this Islamic princess, this kind of this leader of Pakistan now and all that, she was at the time, so you maybe want to tone that chapter down a wee bit, Nizzy,
Yeah, I'm sure. Hey, so listen, when you were a kid in Edinburgh, when you were coming up, what music were you listening to as a kid?
I think because I didn't, my first exposure to music was really through my mum and dad's records, because I didn't have older brothers and sisters, so I inherited their records. So I inherited a kind of quite an older taste in a way. I inherited some of the Beatles and Elvis stuff. It was like I remember as a kid dancing with them. They put me on top of this wardrobe so I'd be the same size as them, and it was like it was the Beatles with Love From Me to You. So I was doing the dancing twist as kids did at the time, and with them, and that was one of my first kind of memories of dancing to music, dancing to a beat, and then it was. They were big into ballads, and I got, my mum was absolutely nuts about Sinatra, so it was all like Sinatra and Tony Bennett. My dad was more rock and roll. It was more kind of Elvis and sort of a lot of the blues artists like B.B. King and all that people get into from Elvis and that generation. But when you get to a certain era and when you go to school, you realise that all the cool girls are really into, all your mates are into Slade, basically, and but all the cool girls are into T-Rex, So I thought, well, I'll definitely get into T-Rex, and I got into Electric Warrior was the first album that I bought. I bought the Get It On and Jeepster singles, and
that's a good first album. I was going to ask you what it was.
Really good first album, and then it's like it was almost like T-Rex versus Slade. It was almost like the Blur versus Oasis thing before its time. That was the thing growing up. It was like, are you a T-Rex fan or are you a Slade fan and all that? And T-Rex was the cooler kids, and Slade was the sort of I had these two sets of mates basically at school. I had my artsy mates and my sporty mates, and my artsy mates were all T-Rex, and my sporty mates that I went to the boxing club with and played football with were all Slade,
Right.
So, but then along came Bowie, basically, and just really changed the dial for everybody, because everybody, all these bands like the Slade and Sweet and Mud and Gary Glitter and they were all like kind of brickies, were suddenly all glammed up because of Bowie. He really moved the kind of dial, and then then it was like Bowie was, for working class kids of my generation in Britain, Bowie was art school. He was our art school, because he was a different kind of artist and a very different kind of British artist. He was very clever and erudite and witty and very, very much a Renaissance man. And he shared everything. He shared all his sources and all his influences. So from Bowie, the first wave of that, you got into all this American music, the Velvet Underground, Iggy, Lou Reed. You got into the New York Dolls and and that was like a segue into the Ramones and punk, and then post Bowie punk started happening in the UK, so you kind of got into the Pistols and Clash, and
then I heard you had your own punk band. Rumor has it.
Yeah, with the Pubic Lice, and there was there was four of us at Edinburgh originally, and two of us went down to London and got together with another two guys in London, but. It was, I've got rejection slips from, these, you make these little cassettes up, and send them to record labels.
Yeah.
I've got rejection slips from every record label in London, which was quite an achievement again in the punk era, when when people made a virtue of not being able to play their instruments, Well,
it's interesting because when did that change? Because obviously people made a thing that they couldn't change the instrument, couldn't play, but then there came the Clash and even Joy Division, and they really couldn't play, but they developed into really good musicians.
The thing is that there's a fake it till you make it thing with punk. It was like you couldn't play initially, but you were expected to improve. You were expected to kind of constantly be at it. And the thing about us was that we just heard the couldn't play part. We didn't hear the you're expected to improve and get better and all that. And it's like a lot of the punks became brilliant musicians. It's like the Clash always had something about them. But even
I think what it was called? Practice. It was called practice. They played. They would play and play and play.
There's also there's also some natural talent that was unearthed as
Yeah,
well. I
for
mean,
sure.
if you look at Steve Jones's guitars, I mean, nobody plays up the top string like Steve Jones.
Yeah,
He's just a
from the
fucking
Sex Pistols. Yeah,
magnificent guitarist, like, you know, a one-off basically. And Paul Cook as a drummer is the same. He's just massively dynamic, you know. So when you've got that, and you've got Lydon's vocals, you know, and Glenn Matlock was a competent bassist, you've already got this kind of you've already got a real group, but you know, and you know that's just luck, really. You know that your mates that you're hanging out with might not be able to play, but they've got some kind of aptitude for it. You know, my
right. And
guys
you're
never really had
and
much of that.
I guess your mates didn't have that.
None of us had any aptitude at all. Like,
Yeah.
you know, we just thought we're in a band, we can walk around. We were originally in Edinburgh and Leith, then in Camden Town. We can walk around with having our little guitars in a case and all that, and we can bullshit girls in pubs and all that and tell them we're in this great band that are about to be signed by, because we're about to be signed by whoever we've handed the tape into
Yeah,
at
that
the
day.
time. Like,
And
you
now,
know, so.
who were you the lead singer?
But you know what? I was constantly demoted. I started off as singer. Can't sing a note. You've heard me try to
Yeah.
sing. It's
So what
embarrassing.
were you then? What did you do?
I said, well, I went on to guitar. I tried to play guitar.
And then you went to
And like,
bass.
and
You
then,
went to-
yeah, you've got
yeah,
it. You've got the kind of, you've
four
got the
strings.
progression. Like, you know,
Yeah,
if it's not, you know, I think I would end up hitting the triangle basically, or banging the tambourine against me.
but
By
you would
then,
have been writing. But you would have been writing the lyrics, though, right? Would
I
that
was
be?
writing the lyrics, and I think that was why I was kept on, because everybody thought this guy's been to art school because he writes some great lyrics. You know, I hadn't, but it was, you know, I was writing these lyrics, but they were stories. You know, they were all stories. So I got into storytelling through music, really.
Oh, you did. So then, when did you decide that you should sort of put music on hold for 30 years or so, and then? Because
Yeah, I mean,
we'll come back to that later. But
yeah, I mean, what happened? Well, I think that you know what I did do was before I got kind of serious about the writing, I thought that with music I can put on parties. I can, you know, I might not be able to play instruments, but I can promote. And I got interested in again, this is the Bowie thing, because Bowie kind of got us into the New York Dolls, and he got us into US punk and all that, which got us into UK punk. But he also got me into soul music and disco, you know, with the Young Americans era and Station to Station and all that. You know, he was just, and then he got me into the electronic music through the Heroes in Low kind of Kraftwerk era. You know, so it was like that was the sort of the education that I kind of got from him, and you had that. You had this whole thing that in the 80s I was, you know, I was into Joy Division, and you know, and that second wave of punk, basically, you know, Magazine and all these bands.
right,
But I really got interested through Bowie in a lot of the electro stuff that was happening, a lot of the disco electro, the Marauder kind of stuff that
right.
was coming out, and you know, it was a great thing to put on a disco party, basically. You know, you could slap down some tunes, and you know, and back then it's like, so I kind of became a DJ in a way, because you know the DJ, there was no professional setups for DJs,
Right.
and the DJ
You
was a
would
guy
just
who had a record
play. You
collection.
would play the
Yeah,
track. You
guy,
were
the guy who's
selected,
got the
as they
records.
call it now, selector. You're a selector.
Yeah, and I had a sort of big record collection that, and I just was obsessed with music and collecting records. So, you know, I would bring them along to a party, and then you start to think, well, let's have a party here in this club. We'll book this club for a night, and then so you become a kind of low life punky promoter type slash DJ kind of thing, you know. And that really was my sole involvement in music for years and years, until sort of until I became a raver again, like, you know, until the late 80s. Sorry, I got right into house music, and you know,
Do you
sort
remember
of
that? Do you remember that first moment, house music moment for you, a rave moment that you saw that was something different, that you
Well, you know,
know.
I mean, it's like what I always go back to. I mean, it's like, you know, you go into. I remember when I went into Danny Rampline's club, Shoom.
Shum, yeah.
I was the only guy who wasn't on ecstasy. You know, everybody else was mashed out the nut on ecstasy, and I
Yeah.
didn't get it at all.
You
You
didn't
know,
get it. You didn't get it.
I didn't get it at all. Like, you know, and I just thought people are having the best time. Why am I having such a shit time? You know, and
Well,
I look.
it was dark and smoky and
It was dark and
sweaty.
smoky, but everybody was having a fucking great time, and I
Yeah,
thought, I'm
yeah.
locked out of this scene here. I can't. This is bugging me. There's no lyrics. People have kind of, you know, they're just listening to, you know, they're just dancing around to this guy playing music and all that. And I just didn't get it at all. And because I'd got really involved in drugs, and I kicked them all. You know, I stopped taking heroin, I stopped taking amphetamines, and I'd even, you know, almost stopped drinking. So I was like, sort of, I was this real straight peg in this fucking mad
Wow,
revolution that
that's
was going
hard.
on.
That's hard to believe, actually.
Yeah, it is.
So
But
what?
then,
So you
well,
went
then
there, and
what
that.
happened? I was
Good, sorry.
back up in Edinburgh, and my pal Susan, we were at this works gig and all that, and it was all the, you know, the sort of the big kind of disco party songs and all that. And she says we're going to this house club, which was UFO became the Pure, and she forced me literally to take a pill, basically, you know.
She
So I just
forced
sat
you,
there. Basically forced it down my neck, and I
like you
thought,
do with
well,
a dog, huh? With the
yeah,
dog, you put it down.
basically, yeah. And I was up going fucking nuts all night, and of course, you know, after that, you know, basically I'd personally invented acid house. Even though I was kind of a year, 18 months or something like that late to the
Well,
party, I'd invented it. So I just became a compulsive raver after that. I just went everywhere. And everywhere was a reputed night on. I started going to Glasgow to the sub club, and you know
right,
Harry was DJing at the sub club, and I started going to the slam nights at the Arches, uh, uh, down in the Hacienda, and you know the that was, you know, that was that kind of the Hacienda had that mad scene with there was all that sort of you know they were right into all that kind of electro, and sort of, you know, it was like a seamless move basically from that kind of stuff they were playing right into people like Chad Jackson and all that playing these big
right,
beats pre-acid house basically, and that
right. Yeah. No,
segued right.
because that was all from the mid '80s. You know, a
Yeah,
little.
yeah,
Yeah.
that segued into acid house perfectly, and then you know,
But when did you? But
kind of meeting Dave Beer, back to basics and all that kind of stuff. You know, so you had this posse of like minds, but from all different towns across the
right?
UK. You know, and you all got to know each other. You became a real kind of little community. You know?
Amazing. Now, when did writing come? When did writing sort of become your focus then, from
I
raving to
think
writing?
it's funny, but it came out of raving basically in a way because. I always had this stuff that I'd written, all these notebooks that I'd filled with kind of with things, and I thought I should actually sit down and write a novel, basically.
What that moment? When was that? Like time
I think it
wise?
was about. I think interestingly, I think it was. It was like I got very interested in thinking about. I was at I was working for Edinburgh District Council. I come back up to Edinburgh. I was doing an MBA, which was the yuppie business degree. My work had sent me there for
Wow,
a day at
that
least
I
at
didn't know
Heriot Watt
that. Yeah,
University, and I was raving at the weekend. So I would be raving my fucking tits off, and going into this still in the happy Monday phase when you go into your work and you're still kind of, you know, but I was going to college, you know, and to doing this business studies masters, and I was like kind of sort of, you know, and I was thinking about how do I reconcile the me of then with the me of now and what's going on with me and all that, you know. It's like I've got, you know, I was more fascinated by my journey from kind of smackhead into this fucking high achieving kind of business guy, and but was also this raver on the side, basically this weekend raver, you know. So it was. I thought I've just got to write this down as a novel. I've got to try and come to terms with all this and understand this kind of voyage that I've been on, like, you know. So I just sat down and I wrote Trainspotting. Basically, I just, you
wow.
know, Usually in the mornings when I was still all kind
So
of.
that was your first novel, Trainspotting. The first.
Yeah, it's the first thing I really properly wrote, basically. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And did you get rejection letters like you did with your
Nothing at
record?
all like that. It was like, it was the opposite. It was instant success. It was like first novel published by the biggest publisher in Britain,
How
made
did you
into.
how did you sort of navigate that? How did you get to how did you get it to that publisher? You know,
Well, what happened was that there was again it was out of house music really because I've got a pal up in Edinburgh, Kevin Williamson, who was a poet and he was a magazine publisher. And I just knew Kevin as this guy that played pool in this pub, like, I didn't really know that he had all this going on.
yeah,
And we started to do these nights together called Invisible Insurrection from the Alexander Trocky book. And it was basically, there was also that time after the rave where people didn't really have anywhere to go in
right.
Edinburgh. So we opened this as a morning cafe where people could relax and they could listen to some poetry readings and they could hear, we could come down with sort of kind of more softer ambient beats and a bit some poetry readings and a bit of chat. It was like a big chill out zone,
Right.
basically, post rave chill out zone. Really popular, but um, they heard that there was a guy called Duncan MacLean who was published by a London publisher, and he told Robin, who eventually became my editor for 30 years, basically, he told him
Wow.
about this stuff that was going on. And I was just, again, I was promoting, I was facilitating, I wasn't participating. And people were getting up and doing their open mic stuff, they're reading their little stories and poems. And I'd been writing my book, and I thought, well, my stuff is fucking, I mean, without being arrogant, my stuff is as good, if not better, than some of the stuff that's up there. So I started doing that, and then I got encouraged by Duncan and Kevin to start sending bits of the novel out to these little presses, basically. So they've published parts of it as stories, and then that got that. I think in London publishing at the time was looking for something different. They always used to. They'd go to the Caribbean, then they'd go to Ireland, then they'd go to India. So they decided Scotland was kind of on the
But
map.
but the thing is, what you wrote about was part of the zeitgeist of the time. So you were writing of the time at the time, right? It was sort of
Yeah, well, I thought originally I thought I was writing an 80s novel. I thought it was set in the 80s. It was kind of notionally around 84, 85.
right,
And it became, with the film, it's like I mean, I had no struggle at all. It got published. It became a kind of word of mouth sensation.
right.
Basically, there was all these kind of stuff in the mainstream press on me, all these features, and then it became a play, and it won the Sunday Times Best Play Award. It went all around the country
And
touring, and
with the play, did you write the script or did you have someone
no,
else
I
write?
didn't. I mean, basically, there's a guy called Harry Gibson, and all he did was basically take chunks out the book and have the characters narrating it, and he put
Right,
some kind of structure into
right.
it. And the play did really well. It won the Play of the Year award, and it took it right around the country. So we were selling books all over the country because of the play. It broke out of. I mean, originally it was people in Scotland, and it was the London cognoscenti that were into it, and then it became a sort of a national thing. And then the film came around so quick that after it, 3 years later, it became that took it internationally, and it made all these international sales on the back of the film. So
Now
yeah,
the music element, you wrote the music into the book, and so you were in your mind. Well, did you when you were writing it, did you see it as becoming a film? When you wrote it, did you think, "Oh, this could be a film," or were you just really thinking
no,
small, or were you
well, you
thinking
don't
big or small? That's
you don't think about that.
okay.
I mean, I was just happy that I thought, well, I've done something that I think is quite good. Nobody else is really going to get it, but I think it's good. Some of my mates, some people in Scotland might like it. It's never that's as far as it goes, So it continually took me by surprise. Basically, the pace of it and the way that it went international and the way that people picked it up. I didn't think I really didn't think anybody would read it because I'd written it in Scottish vernacular, and when I
Yeah.
finished it, I couldn't understand the word of it because you're not used to. Even if you're Scottish, you're not used to seeing words written on a page like that. So
Right.
I had to recite it to myself, kind of, say it out loud about 3 or 4 pages until it started to kick in a little bit.
Now, I never ask you this question, but do you see yourself as a musician who could write or a writer who likes to do music? Because you started as a musician. I'm just wondering which,
I
you
think
know?
musicians stretching it a bit. It's like,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
it's like
Well, I
saying
mean, but
that.
you did start when you started. You were more inspired by wanting to make music, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
definitely everything. I mean, everything grew out of music for me.
yeah.
It's like I was always drawn, but even within music, I was drawn to people who could tell a story. I was drawn to balladeers.
Right.
I loved Shane MacGowan, Nick Cave, kind of, because
So
these
you like
guys could tell a
you were
tale.
listening to lyrics when you heard Bowie,
Yeah,
when you heard Iggy,
yeah,
Lou Reed, Velvet Underground. These are all
definitely. I
people
mean,
who wrote
you
great
can't. I mean,
lyrics.
Lou Reed's one of the greatest lyricists of all times. Like he just tells these brilliant stories in New York. Iggy's an absolutely amazing lyricist. I mean, Iggy's post Stooges stuff, his solo stuff's absolutely fucking. I mean, when you listen to an album like Zombie Birdhouse, that predicts the entire state of politics now, and that was a 1981 not book, so 1981 record. These guys that can tell stories were really sort of were always on my radar, basically, and even Bowie, it's like Bowie just does all that. He sort of got me into all these Beat Generation writers like kind of Burroughs and Ginsberg and all that. And he does that cut up thing, that Brian Gwisman thing, like, when he chops the lyrics up. And
Yeah,
and it's,
did that come from Brian Eno, like with Bowie?
I think,
Because
that it was from Giswing and his sort of originally, but Eno was into all that stuff as well. And Eno did it as a kind of dot matrix thing, didn't he? Kind
yeah,
of, and it was like that thing about it's that idea that that the creative utilization of the random, that you put random things together, you piece, and it's as you know, this is popular in music, it's popular in all kinds of storytelling and all kinds of creativity. You throw different things together, and it suddenly, because you're not thinking linear, you're thinking in a kind of more lateral kind of way. The things that you piece together take on a different feeling and a different vibe, and they take you into a different place of storytelling and discovery.
but does that work with what do you use that in your writing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of I have my keyboards, I have my big laptop with all my stuff on it, and I have my set of keyboards there that I'll plug into it. I'll mess around and do bits of music and try and get some kind of and sing into my little mic and get some melody and do some daft wee songs and then go back to the writing again. And the characters inspire the songs inspire the characters. So I operate in that kind of way, I make up a playlist for each character as well, and it helps me to find the details of that character. What they listen to, I think is very, very important. I have this every character I write, I have this where they stay, who they lay, and what they play. So where they stay is where they come from. It's a kind of
Yeah,
environment,
yeah, yeah,
where they grew up in and all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
and their influences. Who they lay, it's not just about who they're having sex with and how they have
Right.
sex and all that kind of
Who
stuff.
they
It's their
hang
whole
with,
emotional
their
life,
crew.
their
Yeah, yeah.
friendships, their sort of relationships. And what they play is the most mystical one, because you can give somebody, you can create a character and you give them maybe a slightly different playlist to what you would expect them to have. And then it opens up a whole new kind of set of avenues for that character. It just increases the complexity of them. And I find it really helps on the page. It really helps to deliver a much more interesting and engaging character.
Well, you're giving them, bringing them to life by what they
Well,
feel and what they do.
you're giving them a soul. You kind of,
Yeah,
you're with the first two, you're being a bit of a sociologist, psychologist, but you're really, when you get into music, and this is why we love music, because it's getting into the whole mystic element of humanity, the kind of mysteries of humanity. It is it is this lost language that we have across the different dimensions of our existence and all that, you know. So we have access to that. So it is such a kind of a weird, wonderful thing, and a weird, wonderful kind of gift that we can have of communicating with each other in a way that that at first doesn't make sense, but emotionally it makes such perfect sense in terms of our humanity.
Right. I mean, when you said that, it just brought my mind to AI, and it makes it. I know it isn't what you were talking about, but to me, you think in the future AI, you could go in and say the character he plays these records, and then they could spit out something. It's sort of scary. What do you think of AI now?
I think you know what? I think I've kind of sort of changed my mind about it. I think there's a lot of propaganda about it that this is kind of all these mad robots that are going to take over everything. I almost see it as a bit like samplers and sequencers and synthesizers and all that now. It's just going to be another tool. I mean, I think that if you can, I think one of the big problems that we have in the internet age with algorithms, with access to the technology that can create music, is that everybody's getting into things to try to make money, to try to think, to try to work out technical procedures and processes. What they're not doing is they're not developing a voice, they're not developing any art in it, they're not showing their humanity, they're not telling their stories, basically. And I think when you're going to have a pile of stuff that that people do that seems good, but isn't, because they've not really made creative choices. None of their humanity has been sucked out of the equation, like, you know. So I think that the people that will prosper using AI are kind of the same people that prosper using synthesizers or prospered using kind of samplers and sequencers and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
They're people who will use the technology to tell their story. Basically, they won't be looking for somebody to, you know, they won't be looking
to spit out a full song. No, because I know I was working with Steve Mack, your partner in the label, and he's used it very well, because I think they've used it for arrangement and sort of augmenting what the song already is. So I think it's pretty. You can use it in good ways, and it's good or evil.
Well,
It can be evil, but
if you use it in shit ways, it is going to be shit. I mean, it's like kind of I mean, you know, you could say now that I want to, you know, I want to do this. I want to do this classic rock and roll commercial chart hit song that sounds a bit like Slade and sounds a bit, you know, and you bung that in, and what will come out will be something that people have heard a million times before. It'll be quite polished and all that,
Right.
but there won't be any. There won't, you know, there won't be kind of. There won't be Noddy Holder and Dave Lee and Don Powell and, you know, sort of.
But maybe are you giving people too much credit? Do you think?
No,
You know,
I don't.
the
I
new
don't think
generation may not know or may not care. That's what sort of.
well,
That's what I
they
worry
might
about.
not, but you know, I think that there is. I think that, you know, it's like there will be you know, a lot of people will. I think disenfranchised people who don't have the access to money, who don't have the access to education, they'll probably will just take whatever's thrown at them. But, you know, because it'll all be basically free anyway, you know. But I think that you know, that's the most horrible thing about it. It's like everything else. We've created a class of people who, you know, two different classes of people. One eat nice food, one eat McDonald's. You know, the others eat McDonald's. You know, some travel and you know, enjoy the world. Others are stuck in their kind of place, kind of hustling and all that, and trying to get by. And I think that culturally, the same thing. You know, that these inequalities will be sort of writ large as well across the cultural landscape.
I don't think they're going anywhere. Those inequalities. I think they. You know, I don't know how that's ever going to change.
I think they have to, because there
Well,
is
the politicians
there's
plan
nothing
that,
else.
obviously.
There's nothing else now. I mean, I think really it gets to the point where if the state and the corporations and the system can't kind of feed and clothe and entertain people, they'll do it themselves. Like, you know, they've got no option other than doing it themselves. And what happens that does is that it destroys the currency that's actually there already, you know. So, I mean, I optimistically think that all these corporations and states and all, they're actually creating an anarchist revolution by taking people out of the system, the disenfranchising people from the system.
No, I agree that, well, you would assume it would happen sooner rather than later, but
Hopefully, yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. But okay, I was going to talk about collaboration because when you're writing a book, it's purely yourself. When you're writing a script, I know you work with Dean Kavanaugh, who you've worked with on scripts and stuff. What's the difference between, obviously there's a difference in the process, but how do you collaborate with someone in doing a script, or even, because that's probably more like music, I would guess. But I'd find that interesting to know how that works.
Well, I think it's you know, it's again everything. You know what it's like with any kind of collaboration. It depends on the relationships that you have, you know, and what different people are bringing to the table, and the sort of and you know the kind of the chemistry between them and all that sort of stuff. I think that if you write a novel, you're on your own basically. You know, you're like the auteur, for want of a better term. You know, you're playing God basically. But I think when you do movies and TV, it's you know it's a collaborative art, so you go into it with a different mindset. You know, you have to kind of you have to park the pompous novelist and become more of the team player and think to yourself, you know, sort of you know, who's, you know, and you have to see people as a genuine resource, and you have to want to collaborate. You know, you have to think, well, I've got some ideas about this, but they might not be the best ideas. But chuck them in the room and see who wants to run with them, and let's see what everybody else is throwing in, and kind of we'll sift it through together. So your mentality, I think, is very, very different. And I think with Dean and I, it's like it becomes that's the starting point for us, because you know you're going to have the same kind. When you get to a point where you're both happy with something, you're going to have this thing all over again. The discussions, the producer comes into discussion,
Right.
the lead actors will come into the discussion, the director comes into the discussion. So you're kind of constantly building that collaboration up in layers, basically.
Right. And with music, very similar. I mean, I know you've been working, we could talk about you doing the musical of Trainspotting, and you've been working with Steve Mack, who is a great musician, and you know, I'm sure you're bringing melody and lyrics, because Steve's not, you know, I don't know if he writes lyrics or whatever, but how's that collaboration working?
Well, it's funny because, you know, we've done the disco album, and it's when we started doing Trainspotting, it was like, because I write books that can be quite dark and edgy, kind of urban fiction, and Steve's mainly known for doing quite dark techno. You know, that's his
True.
thing, you know,
Yeah.
So you think the combination, Steve and I, would be very kind
Very
of
dark,
sort of
but
dark, nasty music and all that. But the thing is that we have such a laugh together. You know, we just you know, it's just a joy that kind of joy comes out in it. So we seem to have when we did all these songs for Trainspotting, we did every genre. We did blues and rock and country and western, and you know, but we really sort of bedded into disco really strongly, and we just thought, well, let's just keep this going. Let's just do a disco album, because it's such fun. You know, it's such joy to actually do. You know.
Well, every techno producer is a closet disco fan, because it all started
I think
with
so.
it all started it all started with disco. That's it. You know?
Yeah, I think so. But and I think the thing about I think, you know, it's like when you think about it. I mean, what do people like to do? You know, they love to dance and they love to sing. You know, and disco offers both. If you have a kind of disco song with a really great catchy hook and a fabulous beat, you know, you're dancing and singing at the same time. You know, so what's not to like about that? You know, so that's the pure kind of human expression of joy, really. You know, so we decided that. We were going to do a disco album, basically. You know, that was the sort of to get not just another house album, but do a disco album, do something that's got a kind of real soulful feel to it. You know, it's got a real sort of real mood and a real groove. And you look at I mean we just threw all our references for disco into the pot, from Chic and Donna Summer and all the Marauder stuff.
Right.
Barry White and the Love Unlimited Orchestra. I was
Right.
a massive fan of Barry White,
Yeah.
and I love the way that if you listen to Love Unlimited Orchestra, you hear all these kind of this beautiful strings and all that go on for ages and ages, and then you think you're never going to hear it, and then Barry White's voice,
Yeah.
gravelly
Hey,
voice,
baby.
comes
Hey,
in,
baby.
and it's just fucking.
Are you
great.
doing the vocals? Are you doing the hey
I did
baby?
it, mate. I put these guide vocals down, and it was so embarrassing. And we got a couple of fabulous singers because you if you want to do stuff that's kind of got that Motown and Philly spirit to it,
You need
you have to
good
have
singers.
great voices, and
Yeah, you can't fake it.
And the problem is that most singers now, most younger singers now, aren't encouraged to develop that kind of voice. They sing in that. If you look at all the sort of mainstream entertainment songs, they've all got that kind of sort of sex offender kind of sub Sean Paul type voice with the kind of and with the nasal stuff with a little bit Jamaican kind of fake Jamaican twang flung into it and all that, and there's and the girls have got all these kind of sex offender victim voices, sex offender victim voices, all that kind of high helium kind of, so you don't have any. You're wanting people that can hit the back of the room, basically, with these big voices. The great singers that sang, these great black singers that sang in church, basically. They
Right.
sang gospel and just belted it right out and all that. The Motown people and all that. You want this people like that, and we found them we found Louise Marshall, who's just been touring with Dave Gilmour and Pink Floyd and doing that big great gig thing.
Wow.
And Louise does she does all the harmonies for all the big West End shows, so she's got that great voice, and she's used to kind of being in a theatre and just hitting the back of the stage, and she hooked us up with Sean, who's basically been in the Lion King's suit. He's been in a lion suit for 17 years.
Wow.
He's one of the greatest singers that
But
these
undercover,
guys
an
have
undercover
produced.
singer.
He sounds like Teddy Prendergast. He sounds like Luther Vandross. He's got the
Wow.
Marvin Gaye thing going on. He can just do anything, and he just bangs it right out. He just really. You feel the soles of your feet shaking when he sings and all that, and that's the emotional level that we wanted to get to with the songs.
And you put the words in his mouth? You've written
I've
the
put the
lyrics?
words into his mouth, but you would think they were his own, and I've,
Well,
I've
that's
put
the
words
magic.
in Louise's mouth as well. I've
Yeah.
written as a woman, and I've written 5 songs as a man, 5 songs as a woman. So it's kind of
Right.
it's been an interesting exercise to write love songs from a woman's perspective. Basically, is great fun.
Yeah. Did you think you nailed it? Did Emma comment on him? Did your wife comment on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I know I would just say this anyway, and even if it was crap, I would just say this. But everybody's really been loving it,
Cool.
So
All right.
yeah.
Well, listen, we got to talk about Miami and Iggy and Lime Life because that's sort of. I did write a chapter in the book about that experience because that was a pretty mad experience. You came, we reconnected in Miami, and we started hanging out in Miami, and then you bought a place there. Why don't you? What appealed to you about Miami?
The weather,
The
what I
weather.
mean, the weather basically, Arthur. It's and I was living in Chicago at the time, and I just thought like I can't do another winter in Chicago. I just like, and on one level it was great because you're locked up, and for a writer to be locked up, like during COVID, it's sink or swim. So I was knocking out all these scripts and these books and all that, but it was kind of at a cost really to, it was like I just thought I'm locked up here basically, so I went and I bought a place down in Miami, which I got used to going to Miami with the Winter Music Conference, and it's like the WMC. There's loads of British people come across,
Yeah,
and it's almost
they all get sunburned the first day and
they get
walking around like
sunburned,
lobsters.
They get drunk. They get kind of. It's like every every British person caricature in the Sun ever. Like,
It's
let's
proven
stay up
true
all
here.
night,
Yeah.
let's drink loads, let's take loads of drugs, let's fall asleep on the beach, let's get into all sorts of strange problem. But we've got a structure behind it because there's actual events, industry events, and there's gigs and there's DJs that we want to see. So,
But we did reconnect through that, right? Back many years ago. You were
yeah, I
here for
remember.
that.
Yeah, I kind of I wanted to sort of basically I wanted to see you in the elbow rooms and apologize for being such an asshole back in the day, like But then we met, and when you had the elbow rooms in Islington, the pool
Right, right.
place, like and but I think like Derek and Nicky had taken over as your main bugbears by that time because they were always hanging out down there, weren't they?
What, at the elbow room?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that was their place. Like,
yeah.
so I thought
No,
maybe I'll swerve the elbow. I'll swerve going to the elbow rooms, but yeah, we connected back. We hooked up back again in Miami when and that was it. You were just thinking about I think had you been renting a place there and you bought a place or what?
yeah. I bought a place,
Yeah.
and then been here forever since. I mean, 2010. So we reconnected, and then I had an idea to do something because Iggy lived here, and obviously you're a big fan and a friend of his, and I decided we should do something with Iggy, and we had an idea to do. Iggy has sort of a PI in Miami, and then we worked together. I came to Chicago. I got to feel the pain of a Chicago winter for a few days, and we walked by Wrigley Field. And,
Yeah, you didn't stick around too quick.
yeah, I
too
didn't know.
long, yeah, right,
Chicago's definitely not my type of town. Chicago ain't. You know, the song Chicago is no, not for me. But so we did that, and then why don't you describe that a bit of the process from your memories of it? Because we did work
Yeah, I
on it
mean,
for
actually,
fucking years. You know, it's like
we
not.
tried to nail down some ideas, and it was basically to get to do something with Iggy and to try and get Jonas involved if we had if we got a script together.
Now, Jonas Ackland was another friend, a new friend of mine. I had met him in Miami also, and he was a great video. He was making lots of videos, music videos, but also had directed a few films, and we sort of bonded together over Iggy and Lime Life. And go ahead, sorry, I just wanted to point
Yeah,
that
yeah.
out.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. Jonas is a fabulous guy. Like, we all sort of got on like a house on fire and tried to get this thing off the ground. And again, like most of these things, it's very, very, very hard to do. It's like when you think to yourself, you get, I mean, I've worked on so many things with big names down the years that have never got made, and it's just one of these things that you accept that you're going to have a sort of 1 in 10 success rate, even with the kind of the best projects in the world. But I always think that nothing is done until it's done. Basically, they can resurface again. Suddenly, somebody gets a bit hot, or something they do gets a bit hot, and somebody will
Yeah.
say, "Remember that script you sent," and all that. So this is basically, it's like I'm working now on 2 resurrected projects that have been I thought were dead in the water for years, but again they're coming, they're gaining a bit of heat and traction
Well,
again.
you always need someone who believes in it. No matter
Yeah,
who
I
it
mean,
is,
it's
you
like, I
need
think
besides yourself though. You need someone
yeah,
who's
I think that the
right.
big, it's a problem with with most creative industries are that the people that are enthusiastic and clever and creative and can get and are really behind something are very rarely the same people as the ones with the money,
Who make decisions.
who are the
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
gatekeepers that are making decisions, and they're inundated with things. I mean, it's like you kind of think to yourself, all these guys are assholes until you set up a record label like I did 3 years ago, basically, and you become
You become the
because
asshole.
yeah, you become the asshole. What it is like you have all these mates for the 90s that the young kids know there's no money in the game basically,
Yeah,
and they promote things through their WhatsApp groups and their Instagram accounts
yeah.
and all that, and they're just a joy to work with. But it's your old mates that say like, where the fuck is my royalties? And I say, well, there
Yeah,
are none. You know what I mean? It's like
I can just imagine who you're talking about. No, I put a record out. I put out a record with you guys and with Steve. I don't ask for royalties. I mean, if it was in your, if it was in a movie, if it was in your movie, yeah. If it's in a movie, yeah, I want some money.
Well,
But
that's
other
the
than
thing,
that,
man. It's like, but you kind of what you're really doing with an independent record label is you're building up a catalog, basically. And you're hoping that that something's going to sort of hit home either through you're going to have a breakout hit, or you're going to have with loads of mainstream radio airplay, or you're going to have it's going to be picked up for some kind of show or TV program or whatever, and that's the thing. But it's difficult when you're out with mates that have known good times in the 90s and are now pretty skint and they're struggling and all that, and you suddenly say, but that was a great record, it was great fun, and they're like going like, no, oh fuck the fun, I'm skint here, I'm needing some money.
Obviously, it depends on your financial situation, man. There are a lot of people.
Of course,
there are a lot of people from that era who, have tons of money, and they
Well, a
just
lot of people
aren't.
that have tons of money.
They invested well, and they didn't invest.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in
like they kind of they did that classic the classic DJs thing, which I think we've all kind of got into at some point, is that you think, well, I like restaurants and I like bars, so I'll buy a
So
restaurant.
I'll open.
Buy a
Yeah,
bar.
well,
You like
I
restaurants and bars.
I
'cause
did
you're
it.
on the other side
We-
of the counter.
I
You know what
did
I
it.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did it. Obviously, I did.
You're on the
it.
other side of the table, and then you've got, and you think to yourself, it's a whole different ball game when you're not in the, when you're, it's like, this is, and these things just eat money, basically, and they eat time, which is two things
Well,
that you don't,
record labels do that too, though.
record labels do too.
They eat
Yeah.
money and
Yeah.
eat time too.
Well,
So,
I mean, that's, I mean, our strategy has been like, we have to break even, you know what I mean? We're not going to put any of our own money into this. We have to break even, so it's
if
like,
you can do that, then you're winning.
we're winning, we're having fun, we're putting, but it's, and we're hoping for the sort of the breakthrough, basically. But
Well,
we
I mean,
should
you're
see.
putting out albums. I mean, if you when you do the musical, if you put the cast album out on your label and get distribution, you'll probably make money.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're exploring all these avenues, and we're trying to, everything we're doing is we're learning. We've got really good people working with us.
You have a good team. So a few other things. So we did make a record recently. Well, it's probably like 5 years ago. We did Dead Man's Trousers, the track, and that was sort of my idea, which I then didn't follow. Well, I followed through. We made a record. We went in with the guy from Paranoid London. He did a beat.
Yeah,
Remember that night?
yeah.
That was a all that
That
was
was a
missing
great
for
night,
me
like,
was all that was missing for me from that night was cocaine. I could have been
Yeah.
right back in the.
Well, I was gonna say all that was missing from me was cocaine and ketamine, but that wouldn't be entirely true, like.
You probably had you done ketamine that night.
Yeah, I did a loads of ketamine
Yeah.
with palms.
See, I miss out on this because I have no drug awareness anymore. I used to have drug awareness, but when I started doing Return to New York's party in London in the early 2000s, I had partners who I thought were sober because I had no drug awareness, and they were all like totally.
Yeah, I
hammered.
mean it's one of these things. It's like the older you get, the less you're inclined to get involved in anything like that. But I must admit, I have to pull my hand up and say I still do from time to time, but very, very rarely these days.
Right. Okay. I know you. And on January 1st, you come here, and you're on sober for like the months you're here, which is sort of annoying because we can't even.
Yeah, I mean I take 3 months completely.
Yeah.
dry.
So
I
we
go to
have
Boston.
no bottle of wine or anything here. But
Yeah,
as we-
well, I've even stopped eating meat, so I can't even eat these steaks that you cook, like.
yeah. I was going to say, you've been a music fan your entire life, and you hang out with music people, and obviously you're good friends with the guys from Primal Scream and all those folks. And recently, Annie Nightingale passed away, and you gave a great eulogy for her. And how important was she to you? Obviously, you said how important she was, but that whole thing of that era, and because obviously lots of the folks are starting to drop, So that era, how important was that to you,
Well, I
personally?
mean, it's like, I was a kid and her show was just, it's like it's like because most of the DJs, most of the male DJs on Radio 1 at the time were just arseholes. It
Yeah,
was like pricks, like fucking kind of Mike Reed,
Predators.
all these, kind of, all these guys who wanted to be celebrities but had
Yeah,
absolutely no personality at all. They had gone to some minor English public school and they just fannied around and talked over records and all that. I fucking hated it, and Annie Nightingale, the thing about that that I used to really love about her was that she very, very rarely talked over a record, And it's called, and it's like, when you when you've got your little cassette and you're trying to tape a record at that time,
yeah,
there's nothing more annoying than some prick that talks over the whole fucking intro or outro
right.
before. So I really warmed to her then, and then she kind of, she was on TV with Bob Harris and all that. So she was just this, always to me, she was just this great kind of iconic figure. And she was so interested in all different types of music, promoted new music, new bands, and really sort of turned you on to a lot of things, and then through becoming pals with Alex in London,
Her son,
her
Alex
son Alex, who
Nightingale,
was
manager.
who at the time was managing the Scream and he was managing the Orb and sort of he was the agent for the Chemicals. I think he still is. That. I got to know Annie, and it was kind of and she was the great thing about her was that she was just a full-on raver as well. We'd be going
Oh
to.
yeah, no, she never stopped really.
She led from the front basically, and right up
Yeah,
until right up until the end of her life when she was kind of really crippled with arthritis.
right.
She was doing her show from her bed basically in her house in Maida Vale, and it was just. I mean, her passion for music. Never ebbed. I mean, Alex was telling me that when she was literally dying in her bed, she was making up the playlist for the show
Oh
for the,
my,
for the
oh
next show.
man.
She wouldn't, there was no time. I mean, she would actually pass over the other side, and she'd be banging on the gates of heaven with St. Peter answering the door, and really just walking
Yeah.
past them, going through the playlist without So it's really
No,
absolute
special,
success.
special
Yeah,
person, and I DJ'd with her once, and she came on after me, and she just sort of like the first. I don't remember what she played first, but the crowd went from this to that. Just everyone went nuts when she. I mean, she was playing breakbeat at the time. It was sort of the breakbeat era that I was making
right.
breakbeat
Yeah,
records, and she was a
yeah.
break.
She knew a
She
tune, man. She knew what would get
Yeah,
people
no,
going.
she was right in on the breakbeat scene at that point, and it was at a festival, and has to be like Annette was with me, my wife was with me, so it was probably about 18 years ago. So I don't know how old she would have been, but she was killing it for sure. One last question: the Iggy connection. Where do you rate Iggy in the annals of rock and roll? I mean, he's still doing it. He's still out there. It's
It's nuts. I mean, we're doing this gig in Derbyshire, and they've asked me if said, do you want to introduce Iggy on the stage,
oh
I said,
man,
my God, I mean, it's like, do I want to introduce Iggy on stage? It's almost like you're giving me a lifetime achievement award there, if I
yeah.
get to do that, because I mean, Iggy is just like he's just one of the biggest influences in my life, basically, and still is. I love everything that he does. He still does great stuff. He does great albums. He's kind of, he's more popular than ever, and he still goes for it. It's incredible. He's
And
like something.
and the thing is, when you meet him, he doesn't disappoint at all, right?
No,
He's
no,
he's as
he's
he
such a
is
bright guy.
as he is Iggy, and the
Yeah,
words that come out of his mouth, whatever it is, it's just
yeah, and
genius.
he's really clever, witty kind of guy, incredibly bookish, well read, intelligent.
And I
Irvine,
remember, I remember one.
telling me you're going to have to stop saying all those nice things about me.
But the thing I remember when we were doing Lime Life and we wanted him to come out to do a meeting with us in LA, he was like, I don't do meetings unless there's a check before I leave. Right? Remember that? He just would not get on the.
Yeah.
He told us a story.
Meetings in LA, you know. I mean,
Yeah,
I can tell you,
he hates
it was
the
red. It was
suits.
a red rag to a bull, like you know.
Yeah,
The meetings is a bad enough word for him, but meetings in LA. I mean,
well,
fuck
you
it.
remember our meeting at Weinstein and Company, you know? I mean,
Right? Yeah.
it's in the
Yeah.
book. It's in Looking for the Perfect Beat, my memoirs, you know? If you want to hear about it, you get the book. And I want to thank my good friend Irvin Welsh for taking his time out in cold London, Kentish town, I guess. You're right in the...
I should have been right. I should be
You
right
should
back
be in
to where
Miami
you
out
are.
here. Now
Yeah.
we go have...
You should be up in Kensal Rise, and I should be in Miami Beach.
Yeah.
Something's gone wrong
Yeah.
there. There's been some
Well,
kind of
Kenzel,
weird...
I sold the flat. I did close on it. The money's in the
Right.
bank, so I'm out of there. All right,
Right.
man. All right, man. Thank you very much, and love to Emma, and see you
Love to
soon.
that, and